They were torn from the land that was nurtured for them. They stood by while strangers and friends bought their souls and what was theirs for many a year was in minutes torn from their hands. From riches to rags, their heritage divided among many. So let's mourn for their grief and cry for their loss, forever torn from the land.
Thomas Jefferson once stated that the widely dispersed ownership of land by the tiller is the American safeguard for democracy. And small landowners are the most precious parts of a state. And in the 1860s, 80% of the population lived in rural areas. About 4 million farms existed in the United States, and most of those were family farms. The farming peak was in 1935, when approximately 6.8 million farms dotted the United States. With the advancement of technology, life for the farmer became easier. For example, in the early 1800s, it took about 373 hours to produce 100 bushels of wheat, while in 1959, the same task is performed in about 18 hours. This increase in production was heavily due to new machinery, fuel, fertilizer, and many other chemicals. But these costs are expensive, and with their introduction there came the need for a significant increase in capital investment. This in turn created new guidelines for operating credit during the growth cycle. In the 1970s, the farmer was told to plant from fence row to fence row. He was told to get big or get out. He was told to quit repairing old equipment and buy new. He was told to buy and clear more and more land. And the farm credit system was right there, ready to approve new and bigger loans. The American farmer trusted in their creditors as they have for many years. They trusted that they were doing what was right for their farms and what was right for America. They were told they could feed the whole world. Production was up. Profits were up. Land values were up. Times were good. When suddenly, in the early 1980s, the mood sharply changed. A drought hit in 1981 and land values dropped, while interest rates soared and crop prices fizzled to all-time lows. And then, in 1985, the current budget director, David Stockman, stated that the farm problem was a result of too many farms. This attitude was a slap in the face to the American farmer, because for the first time in the history of our nation, the current political and economical belief was for the dispossession of thousands of farm families, all under the guise of good economics. How can this be? How can we be allowing the rural way of life to be systematically destroyed? Farmers are being torn from their land. Loans are being accelerated and called due. Those very same farms are being resold at half the original mortgage value with less interest payment. If the farmer had been offered that deal, he could have kept the farm that belonged to his family for generations. Why are we allowing the death of the American farmer? Now these very same loan officers that once nearly demanded the farmer take out these large loans are calling that farmer a poor manager for taking out loans the loan officers told him to. Does the farmer control interest rates? Does the farmer control land values? Does the farmer control crop prices? The answer to all of these questions is no. And if the farmer can't control these factors, then how can the farmer be told to accept the blame for his own demise? The death of the American farmer is not the fault of the American farmer, and this genocide must be stopped.
It's not a farm problem, it's a national problem. It's a problem with all of America, and it affects every person that's living in this country. And when they take control of the production of food, they will be able to control people. And this is what it's all about, is being able to control people.
26,000, 30,000, I'll be able to get 30, I'm going to only take it about to get 30,000. God is taking about to get 30.
Herb Green stands by with his wife and daughter as the land that has been in his family for generations is auctioned off. He's 66 years old and has farmed this land all of his life. In fact, he was plowing this very same field back in December of '41 when the news came that Pearl Harbor had been bombed. Herb signed up with the Army right away and was sent to the South Pacific in one of the first drafts.
Yeah, I risked my life for my own country. That's the reason I went. If the country ain't worth fighting for, it ain't worth living in.
And so for 4 straight years, Herb fought his way through the South Pacific. He rushed pillboxes, dug into foxholes, did what he could to push the Japanese further and further back. Herb was fighting for America. He was fighting for the protection of democracy and for the freedom of all people. America had called him, and he answered that call without hesitation by putting his own life on the line.
Never had a 3-day pass or a furlough in 4 years. I was at Hermashima where they dropped the atomic bomb. I was all over it. Yeah, I've served my country, and I think I can stand up and say I'm proud of it. And I've raised food for this country all my life. But that wasn't the answer, I guess. I'm selling everything now because I can't make it pay off.
Here's a man who's given his life to America, and yet today, all he has to show for it is a flooded homestead and some rusted old equipment. All of his land and any worthwhile equipment has been sold, with the proceeds going to lending institutions. And why? Because Herb Green couldn't get a fair price for his crops. It's just that simple.
Well, what's going on? America is selling out America. We're bringing everybody else in here and giving them all a head start. It's like this. I fought Japan with a gun. Now they come back here and whip us with a pencil. Of course, I'm going to be 66 this year. And they don't want to hire anybody at that age. It's pretty hard to get a job when you get my age.
At a time in his life when he should be considering retirement, instead, he finds himself with barely anything to call his own. And yet Herb Green gave the best years of his life to his country.
Whose fault was it that the farmer's losing the farm? Is it his fault? Quite to the contrary. It's the fault of the people who brought about the inflation and then the deflation to intentionally take away the farmer's farm, because when you control food, you control the people of a nation. It's not the fault of the farmer that he's losing his farm. It's the fault of the people who intentionally, by design plan, are stealing the farms of America for the purpose of being able to control the food and the people and the farmers. Now, the people in the city think they're all right now. But wait 2 to 5 years from now when it shows up at the grocery store shelf and prices go sky high and food is lacking, and then they'll know that the same people that control the farmer and stole his farm is likewise controlling the city person now.
On the one hand, you've got the analysis that talks about adjustment. On the other hand, you've got the analysis that talks about genocide and destroying not only the rural way of life, the family farmers, but also total rural communities. Because presently there's one farm going under every 6 minutes. And for every 5 to 7 farms that goes under, a business on Main Street goes under. So we'll see an increasing number of ghost towns across rural America. And we're seeing this happen in the heartland of America now.
Streets that were once bustling with heavy traffic on a busy Saturday morning now lay quiet. Sidewalks that were once pounded by the feet of shoppers are now overgrown with weeds and litter. Storefronts that were once made attractive for the buyers are now bolted and locked up. And the rural community, as we once knew it, is dying. Small towns that dot the Midwest farming belt are literally turning to dust. These towns depended upon the farmer's dollar, and the farmer has no dollars to spend. And with the farmers hurting and rural business and communities hurting, the banking industry is also hurting. For over the past 4 years, over 380 banks in this country have been declared insolvent. So if the farmer is allowed to die, much more than just his farm will die with him.